us a little bit to figure out what he was doing. Then all of a sudden we figured out, it's like, oh, he's going to try to do this. That's why his block is weird. That's why he's using his card so weird. And then he drew it on the last possible turn before he was going to die. Killed him with, I believe, exactsies. It was perfect. It was a thing of beauty that you don't get to see very often in Magic. So Steve Rubin, long story short, he can cast some spells. Todd Anderson can too. And we are underway here. Windswept Heath going to get a Forest into an Elvish Mystic. Let's enjoy round at number 10.
Being on the play with Mana Acceleration bodes very well for Todd in these games, because at least game one, Steve is not really equipped with ways to break serve. And one of the weaknesses of Abzan midrange is often in one spell a turn territory. So if Todd can get out in front, Steve is going to be hard-pressed to catch up.
Looks like it's going to be the beatdowns here from Anderson. This is a Nykthos, and just passing the turn back over to Rubin. Rubin with Justice, Ansep, Citadel so far. That is a Thoughtseize. Let's see what's going on over here. Not all the Abzan decks play this card, but Rubin has 4. He'll see an Arbor Colossus, a Doomwake Giant, along with an Eidolon of Blossoms, and just 2 lands. So Anderson has some interest in trying to cast his Eidolon next turn. We'll see if Steve will leave that behind and let him.
I have to imagine that it's Eidolon here, because the other things are just creatures that can be killed. Does not really matter that much if Todd's able to put random big stuff in play. Abzan midrange is able to clear that off the table pretty easily.
And there goes the Eidolon. But Todd is running pretty good. He will draw an Eidolon, draw a card. It's a Voyaging Satyr, and pass the turn back over to Rubin. Rubin will draw a card.
Nothing like the best possible draw.
It's a Temple of Malady.
Always feels good. That never gets old.
Well, you're not wrong. I haven't experienced it for a while. I don't get to play as much anymore, but I would be pumping the fist if I drew that turn.
You got Thoughtseize, your hand's super exposed, and then you just rip the perfect card that they just took out of your hand? I could be playing Magic for 50 years and never get sick of that.
Doomwake Giant going to come in. That'll cantrip. Beat down to the Eidolon. Rubin will take 2. He'll untap his 3 lands, and he'll draw a card. Does have a copy of Bramaz in his hand. 2 of those in his main deck this weekend.
Interesting. I do not believe a fixture of the Pro Tour deck.
No, not at all.
So an update.
See Steve looking at a copy of Courser of Crewfix in the hand as well. Might be considering playing that this turn. As round and round the players do go.
Very powerful hand here, but if Todd's able to just generate a steady stream of enchantments, Steve is going to really struggle to keep his head above water.
There's Courser. Top card, Sylvan Caryatid. Windswept Heath going to come in. Rubin will trigger that. Gain a life. Pass the turn back to Anderson. He's going to quickly untap. It's time to draw a card. A Hornet Queen is what Todd has found.
1 copy in the list as a Cord target. Todd again playing with 3 copies of Cord. But really nice to draw this as a 1-of against Abzan, which struggles to beat this card once it resolves.
Courser in. Doomwake Giant trigger, Eidolon trigger. You see Todd flip over the top card, which was a Sylvan Caryatid. That'll be his draw from Eidolon of Blossom. Top card now is a copy of Polukranos World Eater. And it is red zone time. The Eidolon can safely attack here, as the Courser on Rubin's side is a 1/3.
Unlikely that Steve would be chump blocking the Doomwake Giant anyway, but might as well.
And if Todd does have some sort of follow-up enchantment, he could maybe get him. There's a block. Another Courser, for example.
Sure.
There's a Forest. Gain a life with the Courser. See what the follow-up is here for Anderson as he taps 3 mana. That is an Arbor Colossus, through Nykthos, of course. Generating some mana there.
Not a bad post-combat follow-up.
I've seen worse turns.
And all of this is a consequence of Todd just ripping that Eidolon on turn 3.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It is looking pretty nice. There's a Plains there for Rubin. He's going to sacrifice that Windswept Heath on the upkeep. Reason for that, of course, he does not want to draw that copy of Sylvan Caryatid.
The whole game was shaping up where, that Thoughtseize was Steve's way of making sure that Todd had to play at the same pace, that he had nothing to do with that Mana Acceleration, and that all got blown to bits.
Rubin going to take a look at the top cards. Copy of Murderous Cut. That will be his draw for the turn. So that's added to the grip. Top card, a copy of Utterance. So some removal spells being found here. And see Steve a little bit frustrated, though. Not a great draw this game. And Todd's draw has been very good.
And eventually to catch up, Steve needs to find a way to start jamming 2 spells in a turn. Because he's not going to be able to keep up with Todd's board just casting 1 thing. Because also the 1 thing that he casts is less powerful than what Todd's doing.
There's an Abzan Charm. Utterance. Courser. Hero's Downfall. Yeah, he's going to concede the game. The plan there was Abzan Charm is the 3rd card in his graveyard. If he finds a land, he can play it with Courser, gain a life, cast Murderous Cut.
Exactly, and then he's in a position where he's made his 5th land drop, and maybe he can start getting the ball rolling a little bit.
I like that play because it gives him the best chance to win. I feel, it looks bad if it doesn't work, right? It's like, draw 2 cards, top card's a spell. He could have just cast Murderous Cut that turn, but he's trying to win the game.
Exactly. I think a lot of people in that spot, their instinct would just be, I'll cast a removal spell. But he knows he's so far behind what Todd is doing at that point that he has to cross his fingers and hope to get a little bit lucky, because it's not just about getting out that turn, it's being able to flip the game around and try to win at some point, and he can only do that by trying to maximize his greed.
It is time to take a look at the sideboards here. We will start with Steve Rubin, see a Glare of Heresy, and Erase, and Unravel the Aether, a Liliana Vest, 2 copies of Dune Blast, a Murderous Cut, 3 Drown and Sorrow, 3 Bile Blight, and 2 Nissa Worldwaker. I think Dune Blast is the easiest place to start.
It changes the entire matchup. In game 1, you saw Todd was able to just deploy his entire board without any hesitation. In post-board, that becomes a lot harder. Now, these lists also often play end hostilities. There are none in Steve's list here, but Todd still has to respect that.
And that's what makes things a little bit interesting as we're going to watch this game kind of unfold, is if Todd does try to respect that card, because we've seen players this weekend and previous ones play end hostilities in their main. We've also seen 2 of them in the sideboard. 2 Dune Blasts, no end hostilities, additional removal, of course. Some nice options here for Rubin. What do we see on Anderson's side? 2
copies of Brain Maggot, a Phyrexian Revoker, a Doomwake Giant, 3 copies of Nissa Worldwaker, 4 Nightlia's Disciples, 2 Hornet's Nest, a Hydra Broodmaster, and a Reclamation Sage. I like the 2 copies of Brain Maggot coming in here, as he wants to pick apart Steve's hand, particularly the sweepers. I think the 3 copies of Nissa Worldwaker are well suited here. Maybe he wants the Revoker because Steve is going to be pretty Planeswalker heavy, though none of the Planeswalkers seem especially good against Todd. And maybe the Reclamation Stage as well as a tutor target, and sometimes these lists have some Banishing Lights they bring in post board, and you can always tag a Courser.
These players will shuffle up for game number 2. You guys may have seen that Patrick and I have our worm pins on our suits because, hey, SCG Game Night.
Yeah, you can pick this up at your local store, assuming they're signed up for the Game Night program, which is pretty easy to do by heading over to the StarCityGames.com or by contacting one of the numerous Star City Games OP reps. Again, this program initially launched as Wednesday night, but we've changed it. Run it however you want. Fun and friendly play at your local store, sanctioned or unsanctioned, whatever formats you want. This month for November, the giveaway is these worm tokens and the pin in question. We'll have a new kit every month, so if you want to get signed up for the December kit, make sure to head over to StarCityGames.com right now or contact one of Star City Games' Operation Organized Play reps anytime during East Coast standard business hours.
Every week in November, Star City Games Game Night. Run whatever the heck you want. Just play some Magic as we do get ready for game number 2. Rubin will be on the play here. Todd's draw was explosive that last game, so we'll see if he can do that again. But you mentioned best possible was that Eidolon, and it turns out it was.
Yes. Todd playing the full 4 copies. You mentioned some people sort of moving away from having a lot of copies of this in the list, but against Abzan, it feels like one of the best cards Todd has.
Players lay out their opening hands, and we will be ready for action here in just a moment. Looks like Rubin may be happy with his keep again. Standard Open champion in Washington, D.C. Doesn't feel so long ago. He earned every bit of it that weekend. We'll see if he can win this match, work his way maybe towards a 2nd title, as he will play a Sandstep Citadel. Anderson with a Temple of Malady. Take a look at the top card here. That top card is going to stay on top. Back to Rubin we go. Rubin will draw a card. Copy of Temple of Silence. Top card. We'll see where it goes in just a moment here. It's to the bottom. Back Anderson's way. Nykthos is the draw. And Voyaging Satyr is the play. To Rubin we will go. He will play a Forest. This is a Courser of Crewfix, and the top card is another Courser of Crewfix. To Anderson. Draws a copy of Doomwake Giant.
The openings to these games can be a little slow, but yeah, Todd may be able to break that open.
Doesn't look like an Eidolon this time around. But it will be interesting to see how Todd elects to play this game as there's a Pelucranos, because again, you don't know if he knows Steve Rubin's deck list, but you know he knows Steve Rubin. You know that Rubin built Ari Lax's deck that he won the Pro Tour with, and you know Todd knows that deck. He played it in Minneapolis.
The question is, does Todd know about the absence of end hostilities?
It's a big question.
Because if he's only playing around Doom Blast, the game is very different than if he's playing around Doom Blast and end hostilities.
Utter End going to take care of Pelucranos. 2 damage there from the Courser. See the top card of Rubin's deck. It's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. There's a Courser there for Anderson. Take a look at the top card. It's a Forest. He's going to put that in play. I'll go up to 21. We'll see the top card from Courser here is a Voyaging Satyr. And he'll play a Sylvan Caryatid. Pass the turn back. So, Cave's going to come in. See the top card here from Rubin. It's a Windswept Heath. There is an Ajani on a relatively stable board, too.
For sure. And keep in mind, it's also dangerous for Todd to press too much on trying to punch through a Planeswalker because he has to be worried about sweepers.
Rubin misses with the Ajani, however. Let's see the top card now. It's a copy of Sylvan Caryatid. That'll be his draw step for the turn. Anderson will draw a Voyaging Satyr. Top card is a Forest. He will deploy the Forest, gain a life, of course, up to 20. Top card is a Forest. That'll be Todd's draw step next turn, most likely. 5, 7, maybe. It's interesting when you have to worry about a card like Dune Blast.
And this is the one Hornet Queen he has in the list. A lot of these decks get really redundant with Hornet Queens post-board, but Todd just with the one.
He's going to untap Nykthos after using it. Yeah, okay. He's shoving in.
Yep.
He's going to play everything. All the Voyaging Satyrs, Hornet Queen, lots of bees come in. And the thought process here, and we have seen Todd do this in Legacy mostly when we watch him play Sneak and Show, Todd's not afraid to just go, okay, play everything, and if you have it, you have it. If you don't, you don't. Can you really afford to play around End Hostilities and Dune Blast? It's pretty tough to do.
Also, Steve, with a Planeswalker in play and 5, 6 cards in his hand, if you try to wait too long, Todd might just lose to spot removal plus Ajani generating too much card advantage. So I think Todd can sense that he's in danger. The game is not going at a very good pace for him right now. And trying to beat the board plus Steve's hand plus a theoretical Dune Blast is just not worth the effort.
It takes a lot of courage to move in, but that's what he's going to do. Rubin going to take a look at his top cards. Elspeth among them. There's also a Siege Rhino there. And 2 Dune Blasts in the sideboard there for Steve Rubin. I'd be surprised if they weren't in his deck after sideboard.
I mean, after the mirror match, this has to be the next matchup with that card in mind.
There's an Elspeth. Top card, Temple of Malady. Steve has not played a land yet this turn, so he could play the one off the top of his deck if he'd like.
Well, he passed on playing the land off the top of his deck initially, which means the only thing I can gather is he wants to play a land untapped out of his hand, or at least have the option of doing so.
Anderson waiting patiently, hoping things don't go too badly. There is a Temple. Take a look at the top card. Sansep Citadel going to the bottom. That's a Plains. That'll be the draw next turn. Steve going to tap some mana. He's going to add something to the board here. One thing to note here, too, is Anderson is working with some pretty good information because of the course, so he hasn't seen Dune Blast yet.
Yeah.
There is Sylvan Caryatid.
And if they're hit with Ajani, they go to the bottom.
That's a Courser, and passing the turn back. Rubin had a pretty comfortable 23, but his life total will begin to be under duress here. Though, to be fair, Anderson could go after the Ajani with Hornet Queen and her friends, so we'll see. As there is a Temple. Trigger the Courser. Little scry action. Nykthos, don't need one of those, so that'll go to the bottom. Top card now is a Pelucranos. Hornet Queen. Looks like it's going to take care of Ajani, so the Mentor of Heroes bites the dust. Back to Rubin we go, though. Not a great turn there for Anderson.
No, not a lot to do, but has a Doomway Giant in reserve. So if Steve's leaning very heavily on Elspeth, Todd's got a great follow-up. And a Pelucranos waiting for Todd on the top of his deck.
Top card is Elspeth for Rubin. He's already got one of those in hand. No Giant to activate. That died last turn. Did draw Plains for the turn, so we know he's got a land to play. It's an Abzan Charm. Looks like Rubin will be paying to draw cards. There is Dune Blast. Todd's going to write that one down.
Yep. Though, who knows if there's much to be done about it.
And see, that's the tough part about these Wrath effects against Devotion is you can know they're coming from a mile away. What can you do about it? Nothing.
Well, especially if you try to pace the game, then you're just running into removal spells and Siege Rhinos and that kind of stuff. The only thing that the green and black deck can really do is try to overpower. And that's really hard to do in the face of these sweepers.
Back to Anderson we go. Pelucranos the draw. Top card is Nylon of Blossoms. That'll allow him to rebuild a little bit.
Doomweight Giant plus Eidolon is a pretty reasonable base to rebuild from.
I think the problem here for Todd is right now he's got so much mana, but after Doom Blast moves everything away, he's back to 1 spell per turn territory.
Yeah.
You can see he knows he's in trouble. My opponent's Doom Blast in hand. I can't do anything about it. How do I work through it?
And no deck plays better at 1 spell a turn territory in the format than Abzan midrange.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true.
We both have 4 and 5 mana stuff. Whose stuff is better? It's the Abzan's deck.
Chances are. Anderson. He's got a Pelucranos lined up and the ability to activate it for a lot of mana. Keep in mind, 3 Voyaging Satyrs in play. With a Nykthos out there, he can go absolutely crazy. It looks like that's what he's going to do.
And this way it induces either a removal spell or makes some inroads on Steve's board. And this Pelucranos is not very valuable after the Doom Blast happens because, as you mentioned, Todd's down so much mana that it's just a 5/5 for 4.
And I think Todd is probably hoping, can I just clean all these coursers out of the way? Yep, fire away, fight those, kill them, and let me try to force through some amount of damage. I mean, it's not the best turn, but what this may do is just force the Doom Blast now. Maybe it wasn't forced before.
Or you get a removal spell out of Steve's hand when he's going to untap and sweep you away anyway.
Yeah.
And both of these are okay.
You might be happy with this exchange. Now, Steve does have, I believe, a copy of Murder's Cut in his hand. So but, Steve may respond.
Sure, but again, Todd's got to be happy with being able to do that because after the fact, after this Doom Blast happened, this Pelucranos is not worth very much.
Yep. Got it. You know, you just got to do what you can do, I think, in this spot. That's good to go. There go the coursers. Steve thought about it for a little while. He says, that's fine. You can attack me. Todd may be trying to buy out a removal spell there.
I think it's one of those spots where Todd's happy enough either way.
Todd's already picked up his Mana Accelerant, so he's picking up Lucas now. He knows that Doom Blast is going to clear everything up except for, Sylvan Caryatid. See if Rubin has anything else to do this turn. There's a land. Has Murder's Cut at the ready. Mana available through Sylvan Caryatid. Just going to pass the turn back over to Anderson, who's going to untap and draw. There's Eidolon of Blossoms. It's time to rebuild. Nykthos the draw. There's a forest. All he can do is pass the turn back.
And another issue going forward here is Steve's draws just pound for pound are so much better. Spot removal spells are just cards that are productive on their own. And Todd's going to be drawing a lot of mana creatures and things that are sort of asking for the board to look a certain way.
And he's got a lot of cards left in his hand, too. That's the scary part. There's Elspeth. There's the Sylvan Caryatid. 3 soldier tokens coming. Rubin looks like he may be running away with this one. There's a Doomweight Giant in Anderson's hand. Rubin does know about that. Saw it from the Thoughtseize earlier. There that is. That'll clear away those. Anderson will play a land. Pass it back.
Todd's going to play out the stretch here, but this one's all but done.
Hey, you can pick up info in situations like this. Still plenty to learn. Elspeth's going to take down, takes care of Doomweight Giant. Rubin will just pass the turn back. Anderson draws a forest. He'll play that, kick it back over to Rubin, who will draw a card. He's got his other Doom Blast in his hand.
Another Elspeth as well.
Anderson's draw wasn't Elvish Mystic. He will deploy that. I think Todd may know in this situation that he's beat. Can't overcome Elspeth. Not the first one defeated by the Suns champion.
And Steve also still with 6 cards in hand or something like that.
Doesn't have to cast any of them. He can. He doesn't have to. Anderson going to draw a card. There are a couple of lands. He knows he's beat. He's going to pack it up and pack it in. Steve Rubin going to tie things up here against Todd Anderson. Abzan midrange and Green-Black Devotion headed to game number 3.
And you saw Todd flip over kind of the lands at the end of the game in a little bit of frustration, but I think after that Doom Blast occurred, even if Todd got to, stack his deck, I think he still might have struggled to win.
It's tough because, again, you know that they have access to these mass removal effects, and you can do nothing about it. You have to hope they don't draw it.
Yeah, Todd shoved. He gave himself the best shot. I mean, if Steve doesn't find the Doom Blast there, reasonable chance Todd's able to win the game on the back of Hornet Queen.
Yeah.
But he definitely can't win trying to pace his threats and running into a sea of murderous cuts and Obzon charms and heroes downfalls. He's got to do what his deck can do best and hope that Steve misses his very few answers to that.
That game he didn't. We'll see if it happens here in game number 3 as we will take a look at our 2015 Open Series schedule. We're almost done with 2014 here. 2015 Season 1 has been announced. It's going to be a cold start, but oddly enough, we're going to start it right back here in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio to be exact.
Come back to this convention center, I would assume, and then we move to Philadelphia the following week. After that, we have a week off, if I recall correctly.
We deserve it.
We do deserve it.
I think we've earned it. Wouldn't you agree?
And then Indianapolis the following weekend, and Washington, D.C. I've almost got this memorized by now.
I know you do, but we're going to heat up after that.
Houston,
Yeah.
regionals, Los Angeles.
Oh, my God, look at you go.
And then the weekend between Los Angeles and...
I believe in you. I believe in you.
Whew. So, yeah, Columbus, Philly, D.C., and D.
You're
got
4 for 4.
And then it is weekend off, Houston, L.A., Baltimore. That's the one I always forget.
That's all
Baltimore, Grand Prix Miami, then Dallas, and then the Season 1 Invitational in Richmond.
Spoiler alert, I won't be in Baltimore.
You will not?
I will not. My brother's getting married that weekend.
Congratulations to you and your brother and the rest of your family. That's great news.
Spoiler alert. And Baltimore is like one of my top 5 stops in the Open Series.
I love Baltimore.
I'm a big
You
fan.
love it. You love it because of the Noodles and Company.
That has nothing to do with it.
I love it because when we are there in the winter, the view of the Inner Harbor is beautiful.
It's a delight.
Yep.
It certainly is.
The Domino's Sugar Factory off in the background, and I don't know, it's great. Baltimore's a good city.
I will be in Mexico for the first time. I'm looking
Whereabouts?
forward to that. Outside of Cancun, apparently, on some island.
Okay.
Don't know the name of it, but my brother has assured me that it is nice, and I will have a great time.
Awesome.
So that's where I will be.
I've also not been to Mexico yet, even though I'm, about an hour north of the border.
Yeah, I've never been either. That's the first time for everything. First time for me missing a Baltimore show.
Yeah.
Makes me sad. I love the Baltimore show. So many awesome players come out. Anderson on the play this game. We'll see if he keeps his starting hand. Rubin going to send it back. Todd's going to keep his. I think for Anderson, because the sideboarding games are really tough, that's step number 1. He's got to get a little lucky here.
Yeah, and I think Todd has to keep hands that are a little sketchier. He has to ignore the presence of sweepers. He has to be more willing to bluff to the extent that his deck allows him to. I mean, the deck is all creatures, lands, and 3 Court of Calling, so not a lot of room to bluff. But with that said, he's got to give it his best shot. So we saw what happened. He gave it his best punch, but Doom Blast was too much for him to overcome, and you can see the post-board games playing out that way over and over again.
There's only so much you can do, but you just try. And, it's weird to say that he's got to try to get a little lucky, but that's a real thing in some matchups where the matchup is pretty difficult. It's just like, well, I hate to say it, but opponent, I do hope maybe you mulligan once and maybe your draw doesn't come together appropriately, and that's how you have to beat you.
I felt that way playing a lot against Black Devotion last year with Mono Red. I felt like I'm going to get game 1 there, and then they're going to have Drown in Sorrow twice to beat me games 2 and 3. I'm not going to play around it unless it's so obvious or I have the luxury of doing so.
Yep.
And I'm going to ask them to have it twice.
And if they do, good beats.
Yep, happens.
And now Rubin's going to take another mulligan here. So, again, this is the kind of fortunate thing that needs to happen. And even though this is happening right now, there's no guarantee that Todd even wins this game.
Yeah.
But
I will say, this is a spot, this mulligan to 5 is where the absence of end hostilities is really punishing.
Yeah.
Because getting to 7 mana is much more challenging than getting to 5 when you're depleted on these resources.
Night and day. So Rubin's going to shuffle up here yet again as he's on a mulligan to 5 right now. Never a good time to do it, but certainly not now. So our standard Open champion, when we were in Washington, D.C., is going to try to cobble something together. It's looking tough right now, though.
A good trip out here for Todd.
So far, if he gets this one, chances are I'll be able to draw next round, be elimination rounds with buddy Tom Ross. Gets more Open Series points. He is definitely on the outside looking in right now for the Players' Championship, but we know he's going to be at every event, as now Rubin is going to take a mulligan to 4.
So that thing that you were saying about you just got to hope to get lucky.
look, it's all part of it.
Oh, yeah,
It really is. Anyone who's won a Pro Tour will tell you.
11 round standard open. You gotta. There's some things you have to break your
You're
way.
gonna catch some breaks. That's just the truth of it. You know, I think of that moment Chapin playing and Josh Utterley in the top 4 of Pro Tour Journey Knicks, where I think Josh had thought seized him and saw his hand and saw that Chapin didn't have like the necessary landing on Fleeceman line, and then Chapin draws the necessary land, the crowd goes crazy. Chapin's trying to hide back a smile, and Utterley hears the crowd go crazy, and he's like, I can't believe it. And it's like, look, sometimes you catch some breaks. That's just the reality of it. If you're gonna win a tournament, you're gonna catch some breaks on the way.
Now, I say this understanding Steve is on 4 cards, but he does have a Murderous Cut and a Doom Blast. And I believe he may have a Courser as well. And if that's the case, that's about the best 4-card hand you can ask for.
Anderson going to draw a card. Eidolon of Blossoms is what he's just found. There's a Forest. This is curving out. There's an Eidolon. Trigger, draw a card. It's a Forest, kick the turn back. Rubin will draw a card. Here's Courser. Take a look at the top. It's a Stance Up Citadel. There are lands here. Anderson will draw a card. He's drawing a few of them too. However, there's a second Eidolon. Trigger. Hit 1, hit 2. Nykthos and a Forest. There's a Temple. Take a look at the top card. That's staying on top very quickly. No good attacks past the turn back. Rubin will draw a Stance Up Citadel. That's a Plains.
Steve's going to get to play a little bit of Magic this game, I think.
I think so too. There is a Plains. He goes up to 21. Take a look at the top card now. Drown in Sorrow.
Okay. That'll play.
I mean, it's a game. Abzan Charm in hand. Anderson, draw. Lukranos. Issue here for Todd, he's got a lot of lands in his hand.
He has, I mean, he kept a very land-heavy opening to begin with.
When we talk about catching breaks, Steve Rubin's not doing so bad. Looking at Abzan Charm, the question is how does he want to use it? Kill Lukranos or perhaps draw some cards?
Well, it depends if he thinks he can kind of win this game straight up or if he just needs to get to Doom Blast anyway. If he feels he just has to go to Doom Blast first, then I just like drawing some cards.
Look at his life total.
If he thinks
so high.
I know. If he thinks he can play straight up, then I like just drawing some cards here.
There's the Charm.
The alternate to this is because he's drawing a Drown in Sorrow, he also just keeps the board clean, a Courser in play. That's going to help him find some cards and some mana.
There's the Drown. Bye-bye Eidolon. Drown's going to go to the bottom very quickly. Take a look at the top card.
So he's on no pressure to do that. There's land number 5. We know he has land number 6 in his hand.
Let's see what the top card is now. Siege Rhino. There's an attacker. Court of Calling the draw here for Anderson.
And also, remember, Todd is not aware of the Doom Blast. He knows it's in the deck, but he's not working with any information. We saw last game that he just shoved. His hand is pretty bad, very land heavy, and he may make the same risk-reward assessment that he made last game. And if he does, I think Steve's got the tools to get to Doom Blast with a board. In spite of a 4-card hand.
His draws with Eidolons were not great. A couple of lands came rolling off, kept a little bit of a land-heavy hand. Draw steps for Anderson, not great this game. But he can't complain too much. His opponent didn't bulk into 4 after all.
As you said, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Hey, that's why they play the games. Yeah. You know? Opponent mulligans a 4, it's not over. And you will note between these two players, for Rubin, the mulligans were quick. There was no, blah, blah, blah. I can't believe this is happening right now. None of that. And for Anderson, no pumping of the fist when the mulligans are taking place. Both these players have been playing competitive Magic for a very long time. This is why they play the games. There's a Forest. There's a Voyaging Satyr. Anderson will pass the turn back over to Rubin. He's drawing a Siege Rhino for the turn. Top card, Stance Up Citadel. That's land number 7. Citadel's going to come in. Temple of Silence, the next card.
You can see Steve's motion's a little bit faster. He's engaged now. I think he can also sense that he's got a real shot of winning this game.
There's an attack, block. There's the Rhino. Steve may be trying to sneak in some damage there, acting as though he has knobs on charm.
That's a great, I mean, that's a great attack too. Also, Drown in Sorrow.
Yeah.
If Todd, blocks and Drown in Sorrow is the follow-up there, Todd loses everything. He might not care because his hand's so land heavy, but no reason not to attack.
Anderson draw a copy of Pelucranos. There's a land for the turn.
Just incredible to watch. Just enough positive things have happened for Steve, and enough kind of bad breaks along the way have occurred for Todd that in spite of 7 cards against 4 to start, we've got a real game.
There's Pelucranos. Anderson will pass the turn back. Rubin will untap those lands. Tempo of Silence to draw. Top card is a copy of Hero's Downfall.
And a very nice follow-up to have if your plan is to get to Doom Blast.
We can't forget about the Murderous Cut over there, too.
Yep.
He hasn't even needed to cast it yet. Those mass removal effects, Drown in Sorrow and Doom Blast, have been huge in this matchup.
Steve electing not to play Temple of Silence that turn because he knows he wants to draw the Hero's Downfall anyway.
Yeah, so why play it?
Yep, save it for when there's a card on top you don't want.
Steve going to take a moment here, figure out what can I do? Maybe to hook in more with the Drown in Sorrow. Do I use the Murderous Cut now or later? Do I attack with Siege Rhino? Yes, no, maybe so. He's going to go reaching for some mana here. It's 5. Maybe not.
I guess he can open up with just attacking with the Siege Rhino, because if his plan is to Murderous Cut the Pelucranos anyway, he can always do that after blocks.
And get all the trample damage through.
Exactly.
Looks like he's going to go this route. Murderous Cut there. Full price. We don't see it played for 5 mana often, but we will right now.
Not the best deal at full retail, but who cares, right?
Pretty much. Response here. Gonna activate the Nykthos again. So Anderson generating some mana. Looks like it may be for Court of Calling. Yes. Let's see what he's searching up.
But this was Todd's real ace in the hole here to be a follow-up post-sweeper.
Farika. All right.
Farika's pretty nice here.
Farika is pretty nice. I think he had a mana floating too. Yep. Gonna make a Death Touch creature. Okay.
Gives him a lot of resistance against the Dune Blast.
He's got some fight left in him.
Yep. This is a great hedge by Todd. If he's allowed to develop his board, this Farika is going to be great down the line. And if something bad happens, well, then he's got plenty of fodder in his graveyard. He can probably block for a really long time. Give himself the opportunity to draw out of it.
You gotta say, he's giving himself a shot. He's got 2 lands in his hand. And pass the turn back.
And not a lot of ways for Steven to get a Farika off the table. I think he's got 1 Utter End.
And he's already played it this game.
Yeah.
He hasn't played this game. This last game, excuse me. That he killed a Pelucranos with it. However, the draw here is even more interesting. It's a copy of Nissa. So there is that. Now, Hero's Downfall, of course, staring Anderson right back in the face, but whatever. Let's suit it up.
And I think we might be entering a stage of the game here. I would imagine Steve's going to answer the Nissa this turn, where both players are going to be in a holding pattern. Steve can't Dune Blast that productively at this spot because the Farika is too much of a leftover. So, and there's not much for Todd to be gained by advancing his board because he's got plenty to work with already.
This game just got a whole lot more interesting. Nissa will change things a little bit, you have to imagine. Siege Rhino's the top card of the deck. The one card that Todd doesn't know that's in Steve's hand, the one card is Dune Blast. That's it.
but I think that Todd's line of play is such that he's trying to give himself the most play against it that he can.
He's gonna. It's just really. It's so interesting because he's gonna know every other. He's gonna know every other card because Courser's in play. He's gonna know every card except for maybe the best one in the situation.
But it's got to be the top card on his radar.
Yep.
And Steve's been so contemplative on his turns here that, yes, it could be a bluff, it could be body language, but he's thinking so hard about using a removal spell on Pelukrinos when if Doom Blast wasn't in his hand, that seems pretty straightforward. You just kill the 5/5. I think Todd is aware of what is going on right now.
There's the hero's downfall. Anderson's going to untap. It's a draw. That is a Voyaging Satyr. Attack with the 1/1. The real tension here, too, is how many snakes is he supposed to make and when? When does he make his move?
Well, he needs to leave himself enough of a graveyard that if he gets swept, he's got a follow-up. But 1 point a turn is not great. At this point, it's like Steve didn't even mulligan to 4 at all. We're just playing the game as it is right now.
There's a Windswept Heath, top card, Sylvan Caryatid. Got a Siege Rhino to cast and Doom Blast and Grip. For Steve, the question now is, when do you cast your Doom Blast? Do you play Siege Rhino this turn? Because your Doom Blast is probably going to sweep it away.
Well, I don't think he can't. The second Siege Rhino does not allow him to attack or block more efficiently. So I don't think there's a lot to be gained by deploying it. But the fact that he drew it and said, all right, I'm not casting it. Yes, he could be trying to set up a Doom Blast. Maybe he draws down the line, but
It's got to be a bit of a tip-off.
I think that if you ask Todd to make a friendly wager on whether or not Doom Blast was in Steve's hand right now, he would wager that it is.
Yeah. Gonna sacrifice the Windswept Heath. Go get a Plains, of course. Lose a life and then gain a life from the Courser. Didn't want to draw the Sylvan Caryatid. Let's see what Rubin's gonna draw this turn instead. It's a Courser. That'll be the draw. Now it's a Sandsep Citadel. That'll come into play. Trigger the Courser up to 27. Take a look. Temple of Silence. And Anderson knows every card that Rubin has seen, except for the Doom Blast in hand.
Todd's not even making a second snake.
Nope.
Won't even give him that.
Draws a card. Courser. Take a look at the Devotion count with Farika in play. Right now it's 5. Courser makes it 7. Top card. Voyaging Satyr. You saw Todd leave the fetch land in play for multiple turns just in case something like this does happen. He'll sacrifice the Windswept Heath. Go get a forest out of his deck. Shuffle up. We'll see what the top card is here in just a moment.
But if Farika gets to the requisite devotion, that might be the moment that Steve's hand is force.
There's a forest. Elvish Mystic, not the best draw.
I think Steve was happy to take a point of damage a turn. Less happy to be taking
6.
Yeah, 6 is a lot more than 1, and I think this forces the action.
Steve's giving it some thought. That mulligan a 4 part of the game, well, that's over now. Now we're playing Magic. Steve's going to take the 6. Looks like he's going to go down to 20. Top card, Windswept Heath coming in. Trigger from the Courser. Manic Influence. Fetch lands are powerful.
Imagine that will get shuffled away momentarily.
Yep. Still looking at the Dune Blast. Maybe he's trying to set up a turn where he just goes Dune Blast plus Siege Rhino in the same turn.
Yes.
Maybe that's what it feels like.
It's the alternate line of play instead of just snapping it off right now.
Got 10 mana in play. Elvish Mystic the draw. Eidolon of Blossoms. Good card to refuel with. Attack you for 6 again.
Yeah, I'm sure Todd is thrilled to see that on the top of his deck right now.
Rubin going to sacrifice Windswept Heath. He'll lose 1 and then gain 1. Look at him go. 2 great players doing battle.
And back and forth this has gone too. I would say right now Todd has a slight edge.
It's so hard to say who the favorite is right now. Hero's Downfall, the top card, that might swing things. Mr. Rhino, will you be blocking? Yes. Todd says, yeah, get that thing out of here.
All right. Now the odds that he's getting Doom Blasted are 100%. Before we were only a little bit north of 99%. Yeah. Now we're at 100.
Todd going to pass the turn back. He's not playing to that anymore. Hero's downfall, the draw. Oh, no. Elspeth's the next one. He couldn't miss forever. Tapping 7. Blastorino. Todd going to float a little bit of mana here so that he can refuel.
Yep. And he's got a lot of the little critters that are going to the graveyard now that everything's getting swept up.
Yep. Going to float a bunch of mana so that Free can get to work. Keep in mind, too, you see Eidolon and Blossoms on the top of the deck for Anderson. He's also got 2 creatures in his hand. So Freeka's Devotion could be met again pretty quickly here. Mm-hmm. Both life totals pretty high, so we got a lot of game to play. But Doom Blast's going to clear everything away. And now Anderson's going to have to activate Freeka before the mana is gone. So we'll see how many Death Touch Snakes he gets here in a moment. You see we're only 10 minutes in the match. Don't want this one to come down to time. 3, 4. 4 Death Touch Snakes in.
Still plenty of fuel left in the graveyard.
Yeah. The draw's the Eidolon. We know that. You have to imagine that's where he's going to lead out. So there's Eidolon. Draw card. Play that. There's the attack. Couple of critters. Pass it back. We get Eidolon, that neat interaction with the snakes come back because they're enchantments.
Exactly. I think Steve needs to kill this if he doesn't have another sweeper.
Me too. But we know he has Hero's Downfall in his hand.
Exactly. But this is a spot where Steve, for all the work that Todd's done and all the advantages he's accrued, Elspeth might undo all of it.
There's Sylvan Caryatid. Temple, trigger, gain a life, scry, top to the bottom. Caryatid's going to go away. Mana Confluence is the top card. That'll be the draw next turn. Can Todd slog through this? Elevator's going up. 3 soldier tokens coming in.
And Steve's looked at so many cards. Keep in mind there's a second Doom Blast in this deck. And I think if he finds that, that is going to end Todd.
What's Todd's draw? Didn't get a great look. Definitely a spell. He's going reaching. Doomwake might be the best one right now. Looks like we're in the draw step.
I think Todd is trying to make a snake right now.
Yep. It looked like we're in the draw step, and that's when he's Hero Downfalling.
Yeah.
So he's going to bottleneck Anderson's mana a little bit here. He's going to make a snake, and that's going to cantrip the Eidolon. So that's 1. Looks like he's going to do it again. That's 2. Forest. Bye-bye, Eidolon. Farika looking real good this game.
Hard to imagine Todd having any game against this Doom Blast without this singleton core target.
The tough part here is now will he attack? Because attacking doesn't really accomplish a lot against Elspeth. We know that.
Well, it does prevent Steve from being able to just race to an emblem and start threatening Todd. Because Todd is, for all the card advantage he's generating, he's still sort of just kind of spinning around a little bit.
There's your attack. Some creatures will die.
And Todd, they're willing to basically chump attack with the Elvish Mystic because it puts another creature in the graveyard, which is another snake.
He's trying to run down Elspeth right now, I think, because Elspeth's down to 3. He's just trying to figure out some way to slog through and get it off the table because it's causing too much of a problem. It's going to go up to 4. You saw Mana Confluence to draw coursers on top. We know there's a big dumb rhino over there. There's a land. Electing to go with that instead of the temple. Maybe a little surprising.
It's either big plans for the mana or he wants to draw a courser.
Yep. There's the rhino. That's going to come in. Little drain, little gain. Back Anderson's way we're going to go. Can he keep working through this? Rubin will pass it. Anderson will draw. It's a copy of Llanowar Waste, not what the doctor ordered.
And now the plan, as you called it, of running down Elspeth is not happening. It's going to have to involve Doomweight Giant.
It's not getting any easier. I'll say that. Anderson just going to pass the turn back. Rubin will draw the courser. Top card is a copy of Windswept Heath. Heath going to come into play. Trigger the courser up to 22. Take a look at the top card. It's an Abzan Charm. That's a doozy as well. Elspeth's taken up. Abzan Charm, a creative answer to Farika, mind you. The draw. Pelucranos.
Todd not really working with that substantial of a devotion count right now. The Pelucranos will put him up to 5. He has a Voyaging Satyr. I mean, he's got a lot of mana.
He can get a little bit interesting with it. He's got a land to play.
And he sort of needs to do it now because next turn Steve draws the Abzan Charm and then that line is cut off.
He can generate a decent amount. He's hoping there's no response to Monstrosity, but again, he knows all the cards.
All the draw steps.
Yeah. So he's working with great info.
And now is Todd going to be able to get to this Elspeth?
He's got to get that stupid thing off the board. He's going to make a bunch of mana. It's a lot of fighting. Yep, says get all these out of here. Farika's online. Red zone. If Steve tries to protect it, he's going to lose some stuff.
Yep.
Pelucranos may have been the best draw there.
Well, he can chump block here, fall to 2 tokens on the Elspeth, untap, kill the Pelucranos, make 3 tokens, and then Steve is back to doing okay. I mean, Steve is loath to trade any of his creatures for a snake. You can tell he's trying to avoid that at all costs.
The draw. Windswept Heath going to come in. You saw Abzan Charm, the actual draw for the turn. Utter Ends.
That is the card that Steve needs to finally get out of this Farika.
Now, he does have, again, Abzan Charm to kill the Farika if he'd like to. Utter End does it as well. So now he's found some ways to get it off the table.
Yep.
3 soldiers. Under 3 minutes. Perhaps it's time to Abzan Charm now.
And for as powerful as Pelucranos is, it is just a big dummy that can be chump blocked all day long. The risk, and Steve's got to be contemplating this as well, is there is a copy of Nylea in Todd's deck.
Yep. He's going to draw 2 cards. Utter End looks like it may be played right now. See you later, Farika. And there's a Siege Rhino.
So Steve not even trying to play around the Nylea at this point, not going to leave a removal spell, just drawing as much as he can. Remember, there's still a Doom Blast left in his deck, and that's the big prize. If he can find that, Todd's going to be very hard-pressed to win.
A land for Anderson. Not what he was looking for. He's looking for Nylea. He's looking for Cord. He's looking for something that does something. That's not it. Anderson's going to attack. An easy chump block there. Sacrifice the Windswept Heath, Will Rubin. He's going to go searching very quickly as we are just under 2 minutes here, I believe.
And the game has gone on for so long that Steve has run out of lands to fetch for.
Top card. Erase. Rubin will untap. He'll draw the erase. We believe he could sacrifice the Windswept Heath. That's in play if he'd like, as we have 1 minute to go here in round 10.
Erase is really nice insurance against Nylea.
Yeah. Doomweight Giant too.
Yup.
I would be hard pressed to pass it up versus a random draw step. It would be difficult. Yep, he will take erase. Top card, Courser. Up we go. 5 soldiers out there now for Elspeth. And the Rhino's feeling pretty tough.
I like these attacks. It's a lot of damage.
Got to try to clear the game up.
21 seconds and counting.
Yep.
Steve is not going to have enough time to get to an Elspeth emblem, so this is the next best thing he can do.
Yep. Anderson's going to have to do some blocking now. Some interesting blocks here. Getting creative. Doesn't want to take a lot of trample damage.
Yeah, he's trying to just absorb as much as he can.
Now, we do have confirmation on exactly where the time is at. These players have 3 extra minutes. Try to finish things up.
And there is a huge draw from Todd.
The Bees. The Hornet Queen. Yes, sir. Brings along 4 flyers with it. That's finally a way to take care of this Elspeth.
That's the big prize here, is just getting that Elspeth off the table.
Lucanos red zone, block, yes, pass. Rubin gonna sacrifice his fetch land. No land to search up, he'll shuffle.
Just looking to shuffle, trying to find a Doom Blast.
2 minutes and change. Timely top deck for Anderson. He's got some big draws available in his deck still. Another Pelucanos isn't so bad. Nylea's not so bad.
Doomweight Giant.
Yep. Sylvan Caryatid, not what Rubin's looking for. Top card, Liliana Vess. Oh, boy.
Liliana does allow him to tutor for the Doom Blast.
Yeah.
But that is a slow burn.
So next round. So if you have any final purchases,
Elspeth gonna tick up.
trade in some cards, you pick up some paper orders.
No good attacks here for Rubin. So Anderson's gonna untap, draws a card. Elvish Mystic. Windswept Heath in hand as well.
Keep in mind that as much as we're getting hung up on Todd trying to whittle down these planeswalkers, he's also got to leave enough back on defense and not just get hit by, killed by something like attack you all my Elspeth tokens, untap attack you all my Elspeth tokens. Because Todd's not really in a position to generate lethal as long as Steve is careful about the Pelucanos hitting for too much.
Hornet Queen and friends will take down Elspeth. There's an Elvish Mystic past the turn back. He does have to have that balance. What makes it interesting is you have to imagine these players don't have much time left in the match. They don't have time to think through their decisions as much as they would like, I imagine. So you got to make a play. Hope it's right.
Yep.
Liliana the draw. You know Steve got a race. You see the Murder's Cut on top of the deck. Steve going to take a look at his graveyard. Now he's trying to figure out what he's going to Liliana Vest for. He's taking a look at his sideboard. Wants to make sure he doesn't make some sort of glaring error.
Better safe than sorry.
Yeah. Better do it quickly, though. Seeing what blocks Anderson does have available.
Remember that you can always leave the Caryatid back on defense to chump block the Pelucanos, and that's safe. The only risk there is Nylea. So if Steve is in a position where he's trying to play towards Doom Blast, he can be pretty aggressive attacking with stuff this turn, trying to get in some shots against Todd.
Yeah, he's going to tutor. You see, a Johnny is one of the cards that he's brought forward. You see Wingmate Rocks going through the deck. Siege Rhino, Drown in Sorrow is an option. Steve has such little deck left. That's how long we played.
Yep. So
Drown in Sorrow is the weapon of choice. Interesting stuff.
and now we're going to see some aggression here.
Turn number 1 here of extra turns.
So this is Steve's sort of last, although I think that it's possible Steve should have, I understand the game's super complicated, maybe he made the attacks first and then found whatever he was going to find with Liliana.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, as you said, it's super complicated, right?
If the end result is Steve's going to hang back on D, then it's, you know, whatever. That's fine.
Also, he gets one chance, Liliana, right?
Yeah.
He's got one shot to get it right. And you went with Drown and Sorrow instead of Dune Blast or a card like a Johnny, even though you considered the other options. There goes Liliana. Turn number 2 of extra turns. Windswept Heath going to pass the turn back. Drown and Sorrow's the draw. Temple of Plenty. Bye-bye Llanowar Waste. Abzan Charm. There's Drown. Lots of stuff going to die here. And Todd going to lose just about everything except for the Blue Chronos.
I feel like Steve took a line here to do his best effort to play for the draw.
Wow, Genesis Hydra was the draw? Wow.
Maybe a turn or two too late.
Yeah, that's incredible. Of all the cards we were talking about, the Taka draw, that was one of the few we didn't even mention that would have been completely busted.
There's only 2 copies in his list. Normally this is a 4 of, or at least of the list that I've seen recently. But
and this is going to reveal a ton of cards, obviously. Eidolon among them, another Blue Chronos, Nissa, Courser, Cord, Temple, Llanowar Waste, Temple, Elvish Mystic. One of those cards that it's not is Nylea. Windswept Heath's big.
And even still, this is just Todd's last turn, so what a back and forth game this was.
No kidding. For a mulligan of 4 for Steve Rubin, Dune Blast the top
so
card
who
of the
even
deck.
know?
It's hard to say who would even win this game.
Right. I mean, this is...
With an infinite amount of time, it's hard to say who would even win this game. There's Abzan Charm, and Steve has been using that so much to draw cards, so he's going to draw Dune Blast. He'll draw Hero's Downfall. Top card is Wingmate Rock. Well,
this is one of those things where, you know, Todd might have been trying to do like, oh, look how much stuff I can do this turn. I was probably going to win, and it's still not clear after the 1000th turn of this going back and forth.
And it looks like those players are going to draw. We'll get an official